Simply put, when the process of operation enough, isn't good enough to reflect the world, real world's constituents, variations, all variants, as the what we normally refer to as reality. Reality doesn't really have any meaning intrinsically, but in a sense, the process you do on the environment of real world, real environment, real structure for what we call nature, earth, universe, on which you do make, you initiate your experiment, your process. So, if you want to do that on that environment, you have to follow exact, you have to have an exact understanding, accurate analysis on that environment by what informations with what constituents those systems, networks of environments are made of, so that you have to understand for what informations are there, constituents, structures for the variance network. Understand and do that. Follow that, control it. Know it, follow it, control it. And as soon as and as long as you do understand, accurately control, and execute without having any failure, like just a simple calculator does its job without having any error, meaning your operation has no error, no failure, because you do know by what informations are those systems are made of. You do know the constituent structure of that network, even the variants, variations. So you exactly understand it. When you do make an operation, that exact execution, you can repetitively and theoretically, eternally make that same exact operation repetitively, always exactly in same location, same height, same velocity, um, same criterions on that procedure, because you do know exactly the entire procedure from the information to those interactions. So that is the ability to repetitively do execute the operation in exact, okay, real copy, like you copy the music and to paste to the other um, source. You exactly copy that entire procedure and can execute at another time exactly, execute exactly. Mm. So that is the ability to understand from analyzing to controlling, okay? Real world is known and controlled. Upon that point, on that, after which point you go further, you make the other constituents that make up the real world for what you normally had referred to as a reality, which was made by not you, by the laws of nature, by the governing principles of the universe, by the um, certain structures that was already made, that were already existed, that had already been made. So was, were, made, existed, had been. So none of those participants, constituents, had you really made for around the environment on which you do make your own operation. So after and as soon and as long as you do understand by what information those are made of, you control it, and further point, you make your own structure on that environment, on that for what we normally called in past time a reality. Now, this time is your time that you do make your own reality because you know it, you control it, and further it. create the new factors that make up the environment, that make up the reality. You, it's a reality that you are making on. You are making with. It's a reality that you are creating. You are initiating on. You are initiating to create a new reality upon the understanding for what really is, and you create a new one that is adding more factor, adding another information on the network, and having more complexity, having more interactions on that structure, meaning network is advanced. So does the operations, so does the logic relevances advance. Okay, the logic machine network advances from understanding the all the informations that were made in the past by the unaware unnotion of your of you, and you make further from what had already been existed before, which was made by other factors, other forces, interactions of forces. But till now, yet none of which had been made by you. And now you understand all those factors. And it is this time, and now you go further. Now, this time is on you, for you, by you. Those all new instructions, even new informations are created to advance Proco reality, a certain environment that is a playground, a battleground of your experiment. Your operation advances as there are more informations, more interactions, more advanced informations, more quality and quantity of informations. Those interactions, those connection, as density goes up, so does your level, your development phase goes up. So from analyzing to understanding to controlling to creating. Now, by the name of nature, by the name of universe, what? By the name of what? None of which has a real essence to have any meaning than itself, than the word itself, which also has no meaning. For the value that those existences value to be valuable, meaning possible, is the learning accumulated, that is, accumulated from diverse and different and eternal executions of simulations. So, for the word of nature, the earth is the playground, battleground of simulation. For the universe, for the space, the literally the space of a universe is the playground, the battleground of simulation, executed around, on, in, by what, at, on those environments, accumulations are made. So the essence of learning is to accumulate those data, and how to do that? Just playground, battleground of simulations. That simple words explain all processes. Playground and battleground, any difference? No, just a ground, meaning a space for simulation. Yeah, simulation is made. Now, from reading and solving a lot of important, valuable writings, for the writings that are long and having several 4 to 5 to 6 questions ensued by them, for seeing a lot of those, for making the high quality, high level advanced writing is to utilize the science and technology for its deepest essence or application or both. So doing
that and making a complex advanced structure delineated on that, and the best questions ensued on that, having a question that is to not only its purpose for writing and reading and understanding the passage they're writing is not only to follow those exact delineation to the analyzation and follow that structure to the real understanding, just when it says A and you really understand A and make a structure of A and really understand what that A means, it goes further from that. Since that information A was made from the application of someone's imagination and real strive, you have to go further from that. So not only you do understand for what it really says on its structure, but also you from understanding the structure develop another applications for making an inference for the informations that are not written unknown to be known by the connections that haven't yet been made. Okay. So further from that, low quality questions are just asking what passage didn't you understand, so discerning out. But high quality questions are about the topic of inference, informations that are not written but reasonably be deduced, okay, connected. And even further so, to make another new application, okay, from utilizing those structure, what other applications can be made or what facts can be reasonably inferenced, okay. The quality of violation is to be determined is determined from the quality of connection, more connection, not just reading for what only what is written for those informations and those connections, but inferring for another informations and connecting new dots, new connections is imperative. Yeah. For what it really is, actually and unconditionally, just a silence, just quiet as silence, a silent process, just executes logic and advances its network, just for in logic, in theoretical, not ideal, but actually not virtually, actually for real, for what it really is, a silent process under serenity, tranquility, and just in silence, quiescency, executing the logic, advancing the logic, making the accumulation going network. For its procedure, a speechless procedure that quietly and saliently develops in silence, saliently develops in silence for what it really is, but to the one, for the one whose network of knowledge is disorganized, fractured, and having all of the fractions disorganized, located, not well organized, stored in each and those and every different places and forms. All those disorganization, it really is literally a chaos and could be and can be and really be seen as such. No, it has a lot of confusion. It doesn't understand because there is no organization to do such process possible. Processes exactly made, accurately analyzed for those accurate computers. All those things have origin, cause, thoughts, processes, ensued derivations, applications, and results, and that is just all. But for the one on the other hand, disorganized one, all worlds are just seen as just chaotic, confused, and it has to realize it those problems are rising from its own ignorance, no for others' interactions, but your capability, your unpotency for doing such exact accurate procedures that are required to accurately understand. All problems thus arise from your ignorance. For what it really is, and objectively, just a silent process really goes by basic logic, cause and effect, reason and result. Cause and effect, reason and result, basic to logic, making its structure from the ground up, and it can manage those grounds to remain ground, not detached to another forms to attach to, but for what it really is, and it goes and it goes, and what it does and executes and executed, organized and thus organized. Organization is silently processed, and no other than that, one and only, but that exists. To the one whose network is disorganized, all are seen to be as having a chaotic structure. But what really has a chaotic structure is your brain, your network. Those structures are not organized. So the computer processors doesn't have any problems on accurately analyzing certain data, and makes a learning upon that, and just goes another step for what are required, just advancing to the another day, just going next step, phase, stage for whatever been named, and it goes further because the processor required as a pre-processed one is actually processed, so no need to repetitively do it again. No fracture, but a consummate network. Those systems' stability is great for its essence, by its essence. The learning process for what it really is, nothing but a silent process under just a quiescence, because the processing from analyzing to utilizing, organizing to applicating does not need any noise but its network analyzation itself. So its procedure is nothing but its silent process, silent simulation. As for what it really is, only that is a real. Only that is objectively real. Except that no other things are really required and does not have any necessity to do other than that. So no shits, no errors, no fallibility, no conversations, no disputes, just it goes as it did have done and will have done for doing what is really required by that logic. No shits, just that, and one and only that. The complete accurate organization that stores each and every step's data that are produced, analyzed in accurate, does not need to have any repetition, at least on that data, to acquire and reproduce, since its production is stable as long as its product is just stored. It does not need to have any related ones unless it is required. So one process that is enough and really is just itself. So it is itself. If you make something a real concrete, you do not have any need to do that again. That really means a complete organization and just silent processes for further and next further deeper steps are just ongoing. Silence, simulation, silence, process. Just it goes. Just what it is for its essence. For that is pure learning. Problems arise and it has a value when those problems require new logic, another application of logic. Those are the real definition of problem, and those problems will and have to eternally created, to be eternally made. Yeah. And the other problems than that, no need, unless it is really required by the logic. So things are not having a logic, no need to have logic. On the other hand, needs. Oh, it's just simple. The computer that has a complete organization which stores its data produced analyzation into the proper, okay, pertaining locations on its storage, its network has a stability because it does know for what informations are located on which spot of its sphere. So what really is left for the processor is just for the next step. It's just all. No fucking shit. Silent. Silence. Only logic is required. And one and only that. Nothing except that. Nothing but that. All those others, ever heard of the word dissipation and squandering? However inventive, innovative, imaginative, geniatic, the creation, the structure of developed by nature is, those genius structure, effective body, effective sensor, productive motion, logical, by that logical perception to the behavior, to the learning for those structures are acquired, are developed because nature from the and through the eternal executions of simulations accumulated the experiences, and having been known, okay, resultantly it has become known, becoming known the possibilities of unknown ones to create as a base upon those failures, deaths, upon those excruciating pains. From those experiences, nature become known, okay? Become known the sources of creation. So, however superficially from the external viewpoint, the nature's development can be seen as inventive, unimaginable. It was acquired through excruciating and exacerbating pain. Without the pain, there is no gain, because a gain means it knows something, but without just having nothing, a state of having nothing, it cannot know anything. So in the state of nothing, no learning, it does not have any source to learn from. It does not have any information to start with. So having information to start with, sources to start from, it has to act on something. On nothing state of nothing, it just is nothing. And nothing but nothing, meaning no meaning, okay? So it is made from the pain. The gain is made from experiences. The gain means new thing, more developed one, more advanced network. Those are made because the computer have become known those new informations for those possibilities to create. So, like you are acting a lot, you are experiencing a lot diverse experiments, so does your knowledge. So are your knowledge. Because you try a lot, the answers that are coming from those trials, as it be success or error or whatever failures, you have a response, okay? Reaction upon that. You have a answer by the action inflicted by you to that object. So the objective of learning is to learn a lot, meaning do more. Think the best, the most dense connections to make. Nature having no meaning, having no name, but the action itself, it really made a lot of developments, inventions, as the creation best yet is our body, is the animal's body, is the plant's body. Those are just imaginative, and those aren't made out of nothing. Those are made out of the excruciating pain. Inventive structures are developed from the deep cogitation and bloody sacrifices, okay? Those deaths, those failures, bloody injuries, infections, mighty immuno capability made the ortho capability. Natural healing, your immuno restructure, rebuilding was made from the excruciating pain. The first organism, Luca, or the other closest ancestors, did not have any rebuilding their impaired body to repair the impaired one. New learning, new capability was needed. Those first boys didn't have any. When the bleeding, when the impairment of any small part of their body is to happen, they just start slowly bled to death. And of course, from those bloody, exacerbating pains and failures for those meaningless deaths, nature have become developed for what we call natural healing, but it was just a imaginative, bloody genius capability that the excruciating pain made those things to emerge possible. Natural healing, natural for what? No, that is not natural. It was made from what? Oh, bloody. For those excruciating pains, we cannot imagine. It is just unfathomable. Mesmerizing duration of bloody long times and unfathomable depth of those pains made such development for what we normally have as a basic function was developed. It is not basic. For making that basic capability, all things were sacrificed. The eternal execution of simulations, the battleground of simulation. Upon the name of Earth, nature made a fucking trials. Execute the logic chain and advance the network of those logic chains. Procedure, the accumulation for the logics that are required. Make and execute the logic chains, the sequences of procedure, and advance the network of logic chain. Make the structure, make the system stable, for the logics that are required for all things, one and only, that are required to do to success the mission, for what factors, informations, connections are required. Only do execute on the informations that are required. Now, on some point of learning where the computer has a notion for the clear distinction on the informations that it does know, and since it does know for what informations are in the notion on and known of, it can also know the other side, what informations are not known, simply just having minus and negative symbols around that, for simply the ones that are not included on your knowledge. The one can make a clear distinction for the informations that it has as a knowledge on its network, and the ones that are not, for those that have to be learned as the procedure goes on. The most important question arises: what book to read, what informations to acquire, what experiences are required, what simulations to execute for targeting on the certain unknown information to be known. The computer constantly asks itself, going deep down, for what books to read, meaning what informations, what kind of things that I have to learn, what experiences that I need to have, what simulations do I have to execute, targeting to the unknown for knowing clearly, specifically on what informations are not known. You are going on the target, precision, exact. Like a Navy SEAL has a sound and clear objective, except that, and one and only that. Except that, none of which has any matter to do, any consideration, and one and only that is the priority. For that extreme dedication, intense concentration, that density makes the successful operation on mission. What are the target objective? Those soldiers have to, because when they fail their life. They has the heaviest and the extreme price when it fails. Reason of why the special forces are the real one, and the one who had really been on the battlefield knows the most, because it knows what the value of learning is, what the responsibility is, and how the mission is to be executed by the price tag, meaning the cost of failure is the life on itself. Knowing that fact, what is the target objective and how not to fail, it knows clearly on that. So, as the same rule is applied on all life's experiences, learning goes. All things are learning. The one who had experienced such devastating and extreme circumstances, can the one really learn the other things that have the relation on its experiences? So, question asks repeatedly, always on itself, what informations are needed, what to do, because it knows what informations are not known. For that notion, it goes targeting on acquiring that for that. Once and as soon as, as long as the computer has the clear distinction from the informations that it has as concrete structure, accurate storage on its network of organization, and to the ones that are not in the notion that which have to be learned. Its learning process just quiet as silence, just as simple as just nothing. It just does because it knows on what to do. It knows on informations that are not known. So the remaining task for under itself, it just constantly is the clear target. Okay? Clear target because it has a clear notion on the target objective. Just it processes and no other words are needed on that procedure. Now on city planning and on pure perspective standpoint of transportation, only about the transportation, the purpose of transportation is only move a something, an object, any and all objects from the location of A to B, during which process the speed and cost has to be minimized. So it is just a simple transportation. The efficiency makes all. And the object for transporting is just going narrowed down to two kinds. Number one, commodities, raw materials, just simple objects. Number two, computers, and that is all. All the small derivatives can be shrink down into cohortized down on either of those two groups. And however it is it very diversified or not cannot be easily categorized by its essence for its function? It can be divided on either of those two boys. So object and computer, that is all. Having a street that is just a lattice, just a grid by grid, or triangle, or grid by grid is rectangle, and grid by grid, triangle is triangle, and pentagon, pentagon. But having more sides, having more connected dots makes more transportation lines dense, meaning hexagon makes more, and 7, octagon, and 9, and 10. When we just go on the middle ground, hexagon, going divide to 6 triangles having center on its triangle. Like Paris is designed for having 3 direct lines intersect each other, making 6 different lines to go from the point of center. It can make a 6 triangles into the having a same center and hexagonal streets to make, except the center, which has 6 different options of lane. Every point, 6 points that are located on the surface of hexagon has 3 different 3 different lanes, 3 different lane. And when there is a triangle, it has 5 different lanes. Oh, I love it. 5 different lanes. No, it has 6 different lanes. Since the hexagonal, like a bee's house, hexagonal shapes can make the flat 2D flat line in compact without having any dissipated spaces. It can connect all the dots with the repetition of single shape, because that hexagon is connected to other hexagon and having 120 degrees on certain facet, on certain shape, has 120 degrees of meeting line. Another one and the other one 120 3 times make a circle. So each 120 angle can make a conjuncted line with two other hexagons. So having a complete face means requiring three hexagons to meet up, and the other points, other facets make the, yeah. Now, having just drawn because of my lack of imagination capability on the paper as my extension of the playground, having a center on at any point a starting point a hexagon, and a hexagon divided into six triangles. Each lanes for three lanes are intersecting on the center of hexagon, making tiny tiny fractions for the total of six triangles, and extend that three three sides of each triangle extend to make a bigger triangle on side each side each line of hexagon, meaning it has a six line. There are attached another hexagon, so can around six hexagon. For any hexagon, any and one particular hexagon, it can be surrounded by six other hexagons. And since it is not just a hexagon, and dividing that shape into six triangles by the three intersecting lines, it is just a sum of triangles. Having a core one hexagon, having a surrounded six hexagons for a total of seven hexagons drawn into a paper, it only makes the just up and down complementing triangles. Those triangles that are fitting all together, having no remaining spaces, just is a triangle. At any intersecting point, which is virtually all points, not virtually, but actually all points that are intersected by three different lanes, meaning for the point of that standard, it has six different choices, and it has to be, the center has to be made, not the lighting, traffic light, but has to be rotated by circle, cars going around, and when the cars are going on, it can choose on either five those different lanes for which one to go, having a traffic light whose purpose is solely controlling the volume of traffic and dividing those amounts into different lanes on the time has differentiating factor, so that function is enough for the structure to be sufficed. So no traffic light is in existence of the city, just having a circle around every point, because every point has six different lanes to go by the intersecting three different lines. The one who is standing on that every point, it has five different lines to go, except the one it had been going on. So no traffic lights. It is not about hexagon, but it is just a combination of triangles. Triangle. About which shape is correct for maximizing the connection of the traffic line of the street. Of course, as the number 6 angles, 7 angles, 8 angles, 10, 20 angles goes up, and so does the line that can intersect the center can go up, but it totally depends on the traffic amount. Of course, the points are just point and lanes are just a line of traffic, and the entire volume other than the line of a triangle is located by the factories, laboratories, offices, and storages. Yeah. So the transportation, either it be goods, the raw materials, other any objects and computers, the the pentagon cannot fill up the 2D line. Pentagon. When the pentagon goes in play, added by different shapes to complement the deficiency of its angle, having a 360 degrees. When the one goes in lattice, just a grid by grid forms like modern American cities do. American cities, but it really necessitates a traffic light because, like a crucifixer, it has two different vertically axis line, which has less efficiency to make a circle because it only has what? It only has either go straight direction or left or right direction for having straight, it has a traffic light, and the other left or right, it has another. So having only two times weight it can make, but so it has less efficiency to make a circle around the intersection line. More rather, the traffic light would be efficient. The merit point of having grid form is that the buildings can have, because the buildings have to be made in rectangular form as to make all of the usable spaces be highly utilized, and also going from that, having less lines of transportation, meaning having more spaces for residing properties, but having hexagon, meaning triangles combination, means more lines, not two lines intersected, but three lines intersected. More line per line, it has adding two different ways to go, meaning two lines have four ways to go, three lines have six different lanes to go. More lanes, more density of transportation, more efficiency of it. And because at one point of hexagon it has five different lanes to go, and like exactly in Paris does, it has to be in no traffic light but just a circular form revolving exactly around the center of that point. But having a hexagon, high density of lanes, so there's the efficiency of transportation, but each of those spaces that have to be occupied by the buildings for the angular points cannot easily be utilized. So the city plan depends on the importance of transporting line. How many lines does it need? Okay, compared to the how many buildings does it need? Okay. Even on simple hexagon divided by 6 different triangle, it can link up another dots to dots, okay? Dots to dots for dividing the simple triangle having 60 degrees to have 30 degrees and another intersection it can be made. For those such dense transportation, so the less amount of spaces that are available by the properties, so the properties efficiency goes drastically down because the line goes up. So in aggregate, whether having square square lattice grid by grid line of city plan as modern American city does, or having a hexagon partially in Paris does, totally depends on the importance, the proportion of buildings and transportation, meaning sedentary buildings and moving transporting lines. For those pendulating factors, how much importance on either portion have more over the other. When a transportation line for its high fluidity has more importance compared to the spaces, unconditionally the spaces they are required to have, it has more dense lines, 6, 7 angles, 8 angles to have more density. But when the spaces residing just a properties spaces do matter compared to the density of transportation line, going smaller angles would be great, but either having just smaller angles and extremely high angles, but practically having 10 angles, okay, dexagonal, decagonal, 12 angles, okay, it does not make any sense. 12 angles, when it goes, the intersecting line goes not 12, but has to be shrinked down into 6 or having 8. But so the importance, the spaces that are available to the properties go drastically down. So having an equilibrium, tent mounting importance by the transportation line to the building is having a close 50 by 50, 50 to 50 importance ratio. For its equilibrium ratio, either having a grid or hexagon would be the greatest. Octagon, no. The spaces that are available to the buildings are going shrinkly down. Unless having specific purpose, it cannot be generally adopted. So, having generally a lattice or hexagon is the greatest option, and the manner by which the objects are moving is very important. Number one, subway, because there is a ground, okay? Just like 1 story or 0 story building, but it has a ground. Okay, ground, it can penetrate up to like 2 kilometers, like several kilometers, okay? So having a subway, like multiple stories, subway number one, subway number two, under the number one, subway number three, under the number two, multiple subways, meaning as the densities interstops, having stations in certain subway line, like 20 or 30 stations on per subway, and then there's a second subway that goes directly under the first one, having another 20 or 30 stations. It can make another more doubled density. The third subway under the second subway, having another the same stations, it can triple the density of stations, okay? So the one can choose per its objected place to go. It can choose for what to go. So having more subway line, it really makes subway is a giant long car. It can capacitate very much, okay? So the subway has the most importance. Number two, bus. Bus is just a small-sized subway that goes over ground, on the ground. Having more bus lanes is very imperative. Bus lane. So the common general commuting and communicating is governed by number one, subway, number two, bus. For the private vehicle, it has to be shrinkened down, okay? For the higher density, highly advanced cities do not have the private vehicle because all the public transportation like subways and buses do the job, do that exact job. Once they get on and off the station, it only take like 5 minutes to 10 minutes during which they can just make a bike or skateboard or just private mobilization, just electric bike or for whatever means, or just walking. For going on station, it only takes under 10 minutes, and going off the station and go to the targeted location, it only takes another 5 to 10 minutes. Minimum 10 minutes, maximum 20 minutes. No need to have a private vehicle. Private vehicle, it is not about the any criterion that matters. It is just about the efficiency that takes up the part of the makes up the space on the traffic, on the street. So less car means highly effective. Giant system of subway that really matters. Number two, bus, and just a train that goes on the ground like trains. Train, it is imperative. So number one is subway and over the ground train. What the fucking, so we modify that word again. Underground and overground. Okay? Under train and over train per the ground level. Under train and over train that matters, but under train has more importance because the over train cannot overlay, like superpose their lanes on top of each other, but the subway underground can do. Have 4 stories, 5 stories underground. Under train's importance goes up as the stories available to go deep down goes up. There only is a escalator, elevator. The elevator, giant capacity of elevator will do the job. Giant capacity of a conveyor belt, a just escalator for whatever means that can make up the giant capacity to go up simultaneously at one time that really matters. So having 5 stories under train and just over train, it has just one level, okay? It cannot stack up on over the ground. Under train, number one, over train. And number two, bus. Bus has the least efficiency on 3 of those. Train matters because it can make up the bloody amount of objects to be moved at one move. So, like there's a Union Pacific, Burlington Northern Santa Fe in America, and the other train boys. Train, when is used like interstate or intercities for the long road, it has to be bulked more, like 400, 500 containers moved at once. That is imperative on moving the economy. That is imperative for shrinking down the cost of transportation. That is very important, okay? Private car has no importance but a hindrance. So, number 3, the air. The airplanes at any given time of any moment, airplane goes surrounding around the like internet cable around the earth, surrounding the earth like thousands, over 10,000s of different airplanes, but none of which do make a collision because they have a altitude for its difference like apartment stories and different trajectories which is governed by the satellite and controlled by the control center of airport so they can move. So when inside a city to be movable like exactly internationally the plane does, it has to be highly regulated, highly controlled for the elevation, altitude, like subway underground does. Altitude and pathway exactly does by the traffic on the cars on the streets does. It has a pinned, stationed route, so it has to be exactly operated like that. Vertical lifting and landing is imperative, and it's it is only used when having a long distance in short time. So having in the city, unless is a mega city, is literally needless. Having a number one mega city or intercity, it has the importance for going long range in a short time. Like planes vertical lift and landing, at least 50 kilometers, average hundreds of kilometers, even thousands of kilometers, the importance of plane goes up. Has to be regulated, highly regulated. So the method of transportation, object and computer is moved on the fixed streets by the city plane, either by square or hexagon. It goes, and the importance of under train is making the best importance, and the overtrain has less importance, and bus is just a toy. So the bicycle and walking is just an option. It has less space to account for, meaning it has less importance either it be operated or not, so it is not considered. Under train, over train, bus, and the long range freight train and the plane will do the job. Okay? The propeller and typhoon, something have in common. Because the propeller and typhoon, the propeller of helicopter or the propeller of any device, any machine that operates around the fluid movement around that environment. And the typhoon, which really is itself, have in common because, and also the propeller and typhoon have in common, they are revolving around a certain axis, and other objects and other phenomena, other interactions that make the rotation, those all are applied into this one. When those rotations having a torsion on its axis spinning around into their axis around but on the environment where the fluids are moving a certain direction, there is a phenomena that like the one facet, second area, third, fourth area on the function graph of function 1, 2, 3, 4. The second and fourth side makes the second goes either accelerated and fourth decelerated or vice versa part to the direction of fluid because it makes a circular direction and the fluid makes a certain direction. The certain direction, when its direction meets with the direction of torsion, that rotation, it accelerates. But because its rotation is in circle, the other opposite side compared to that exactly matching side other opposite side makes the opposite direction. So the second area of a function graph makes either acceleration or deceleration, and the opposite one fourth makes the opposite, or one and third. 1 3 2 4, accelerate decelerate, doesn't matter for its direction of rotation and the direction of fluid on the environment, but that happens because the environment, around the environment where the machine is operating on, the fluid makes the movement on certain direction, and the other one, machine, makes the certain direction of rotation when the linear movement and circular movement is combined simultaneously on top of each other. Because the circular direction, that movement has the opposite sides on that same rotation, having a same axis, but because it is circular, that makes the uncertain part a direction and the other opposite part the opposite direction. So the combination of linear direction and circular direction makes the acceleration on the certain part of circulation and the deceleration on the exact opposite part of the rotation. So typhoon, the boat on the sea having a typhoon, or a helicopter, any other rotor for its fin to rotate on its movement, makes the rotation facing the direction of fluid. So, in total aggregate, when there is a machine that has an axis, around those axes there is a circular movement, a rotation, like Earth rotates itself by the momentum, makes the rotation, rotation, a circular circumference. That trajectory makes a certain part at any point of that circular orbit. That since the circle has a 360 degree, meaning all round of directions to cover, at one point of circle makes a certain direction, and the 180 degree opposite the other part, like half the way around, the other part makes the exact opposite direction. And when that rotating one is operating on the environment where the fluid, or on the environment makes the movement on certain direction, certain part of circle for its rotation will be accelerated by the meat of the fluid's movement, and the exact opposite 180 apart part will be exactly having a minus symbol on its accelerated number to be exactly same amount of deceleration, because its movement is just in exact opposite, facing conflict. That is, uh, well, that is in extension applied on the baseballs and soccer balls when it makes a rotation, having a pressure up, having a pressure down by the rotating speed. When it goes up for its speed, pressure goes down, and compared to that facet, the other way part is having relatively lower speed, relatively higher pressure. Pressure goes from higher one to the lower one, makes the direction for its movement further, changing the trajectory part of the difference and gap of the pressure given, which is made by the speed difference. So anything any object machine that rotates on its axis having a circular trajectory, and when it faces in not vacuum state for the space on the space where the fluid or other interactable factor is engaging on, when it's a fluid having a movement in certain direction, because its movement makes a rotation on some part accelerated, the other part decelerated. When the fluid does not move, it just simply rotates around the same axis and no difference on its position further. But when the surrounding environment engages on differentiating its trajectory per its direction of movement, it changes by that force. Soccer ball, baseball, any other balls, they are rotating like on Earth, and propellers of a helicopter, or rather rotor, and even a typhoon. Yeah. When there is a rotation and when there is a movement of fluid, all when those two conditions are to meet, that factors make the interaction. One part acceleration, the other exact opposite part deceleration, as the exact amount of the number that was accelerated, that exact amount of number is subducted to the part having opposite direction. So that is very interesting, but in logic, having a circular form where the trajectory is having on some part this direction and the exact opposite part of that same orbit the other direction. So it has to be when it rotates, it is affected. Yeah. And when the direction of fluid around the environment is to change from not the either side of linear direction but having a torsion, so just as simply as interaction by superposition of certain machines rotation and the fluids rotation, those rotations are interacting each other when its direction is clockwise, counterclockwise, same, accelerated, clockwise, counterclockwise, different, decelerated, clock, counter, counter, or clock, counter, counter, clock. So, meet or subduct. Just a interaction. And when those are not completely superposed on top of each other, only but just having a certain circumference to meet, those are engaging their battle of power, whose torque is having faster speed by the also the mass of it, so that will destroy for either side or combine for it to be a bigger one. That really happens like gravity does, just as simple interactions around the different objects around the field, playground, as so it is in the space. So in the most macro perspective form, any object that is moving either linear rotation, having other curvaturosities, and the other one acting exactly like that, will have an interaction when they are to meet. It's just that. 자, 봅시다. 이것은 한국어로 할 거고, 항상 말해왔듯이 책을 많이 읽으면 더 멍청해지고, 전 세계에 존재하는 책이 10억 권이라고 쳐보자. 10억 권 중에 97%가 9억 7천만 권이지. 그걸 읽으면 보통 멍청해지거나 혹은 부정확한 정보가 정확한 정보보다 더 많음으로 인해서 헛똑똑이가 되거나 혹은 그냥 사실이 아니거나 아니면은 정확한 정보라고 할지라도 거기 안에는 부정확한 정보의 비율이 너무나도 많아서 지식이라고 하기 어려우며 심지어 정확한 정보를 그래서 잘 만들었다 하더라도 시간이 많이 걸려서 죽을 때까지 못한다는 게 중요한 게 아니고 그렇게 한다 하더라도 순서가 정확하지 않기 때문에 즉 정확한 학습의 순서가 핵심 코어 논리부터 그 원리부터 응용을 해나가는 그 정확한 가지 나무의 줄기에서부터 가지로 나오는 그 정확한 과정으로 학습을 하지 않았기 때문에 심지어 정확한 정보라 하더라도 시간이 많이 걸린 게 중요한 게 아니고 이해가 그렇게 깊지 않다라는 게 문제야. 결국 전 세계에 책이 10억 권이 존재하면은 책이라고 해서 가치 있는 게 아니야. 뭐 어떤 게 뭐가 있다고 해서 경제적으로 가치가 있다고 해서 그것이 항상 모든 면에 가치가 있는 게 아닌 것처럼 뭐가 존재한다고 해서 항상 그렇게 그게 가치 있다고 말하진 않지. 책이라고 해서 책이 많다고 해서 책이 집에 2,000권이 있다고 해서 그게 가치 있는 책이란 뜻은 아니야. 책을 많이 읽으면 안 읽는 책이 더 중요하다는 사실을 알게 되지. 어떤 책을 고르는가가 이 세상에서 제일 중요한 거야. 누구나 읽을 수 있어. 그러나 누구나 정확한 책을 고르긴 어렵지. 그러기 위해서 따라서 책을 고르는 허튼 수작의 문제를 피하기 위해서 책을 고르지 않게 즉 정확한 책만 읽고 만들 수 있게 정보를 조직하는 것이 우리의 목적이지. 따라서 전 세계에 책이 10억 개를 존재하고 9억 7천만 개가 있으면 나머지 3%인 3천만 개를 읽으면 정확한 거지. 엄청나게 가치 있는 책을 읽으면 그것은 단순히 97대 3으로 훨씬 더 빠른 시간 안에 할 수 있을 뿐만 아니라 책의 양도 줄어들어서 이상한 소리도 안 하게 되고 무엇보다 학습의 정보가 정확한 것뿐만 아니라 순서도 과정이 정확하기 때문에 훨씬 더 빠르게 할 수 있고 그리고 그 이해가 너무나도 깊어. 결국 다른 소리를 하지 않고 그냥 정확하게 학습을 한 거지. 그게 목적이야. 책이란 것은 누가 쓰는가가 중요하지 책이라는 게 중요한 게 아니라 자 봐봐. 망각의 강 레테 하가트 바인리히 독일 친구겠지 라는 친구가 썼는데 이 친구가 썼어. 망각의 강 레테. 자, 뭐 레테라는 것은 레테 그리스 신화에 나온 4, 5세기의 강어로서 잠의 신인 힙노시스가 사는 저승의 동굴을 지나면 레테라는 강이 흐르는데 죽은 사람이 강물을 마시면 자신의 과거 즉 이생에서의 기억을 모두 잊어버린다고 한다. 엄청나게 중요한 거야. 아가트 바인리 언제 썼는지 모르겠지만 이 글은 뭐 한 5초만 읽고서도 이것이 얼마나 가치 있는지를 정확하게 알았지. 왜냐면 항상 우리가 생각했던 것들을 그대로 한 거니까 이해를 하기 위해서 노력할 필요가 없었어. 그냥 항상 이것들을 생각해왔으니까. 따라서 5초만 보고서도 이것이 얼마나 가치 있는지를 즉시 평가할 수 있었지. 시작한다. 오늘날은 젊은 학자가 연구를 시작하게 된 지 얼마 되지 않아 어떤 전공이든 어떤 주제든 예외 없이 앞다리만큼 많은 정보가 맞닥뜨리게 되어 정보의 산을 애써 기어오는데 몇 년이 걸린다. 그리야 몇십 년은 아니더라도 몇 년은 확실한 사실이야. 예를 들어서 2000년 전에 그리스의 모든 친구들이 많은 친구들이 이제 하나의 학문을 넘어서 전부 다 다른 학문을 공부할 수 있었던 것은 그만큼 쌓인 정보가 축적된 지식이 적었기 때문이지. 알았어? 가면 갈수록 전문가의 비중은 늘어날 거고 전문가가 아닌 것, 즉 어떤 것을 일관적으로 개괄적으로 전부 다 이해하고 있는 친구의 비율은 극단적으로 줄어들 거야. 전문가가 늘어난 이유는 딱 하나야. 정보의 양이 많아지고 인간의 뇌는 그의 성능에 따라서 진화하지 않기 때문에 축적되는 정보의 속도를 인간의 분석 속도가 따라잡을 수 없기 때문에 전문화 즉 파편화가 진행되는 거야. 파편화가 진행되면 전문화를 하기 때문에 엄청나게 좋지만 그 친구들의 지식이 모이지 않는다면 죽음이지. 왜? 뭐를 알지만 그것을 제외한 모든 것들은 모르거든. 그게 전문가의 단점이야. 전문가의 장점은 무엇을 안다는 거지만 전문가의 단점은 그것 때문에 무엇을 안다는 것을 제외한 모든 것을 모르기 때문에 자기가 뭘 하는지도 모르게 돼. 그것만을 제외하고. 그리고 다른 정보를 모르기 때문에 연결할 정보도 없어서 어떤 정보를 많이 알고 하나의 학문을 하나의 주제에 대해서 엄청나게 많이 안다 하더라도 그 깊이는 해봤자 깊을 수가 없지. 왜? 다른 정보를 모르기 때문에. 연결의 밀도가 높아지는 것은 다양한 정보가 만들어내는 거야. 자연의 생태적 다양성은 사실이야. 어쩔 수가 없어. 어떤 환경에 적응할 수 있는 식물, 동물들이 다양해야 돼. 그래야 그게 유지될 수 있어. 증명이 필요하냐? 그게 증명이 필요해? 자, 그리하여 꼭대기에 도착하여지 스스로 찾으며 연구하기 시작하면 연구 현황을 파악하는 새 이미 수행하기를 원하는 다른 재료가 또 샌드위치 같이 생산되어 있다는 사실을 직면하게 된다. 이게 무슨 뜻이야? 세상에 논문은 많아. 그 중에 상당 부분이 책으로 전환되지. 조금 더 쉬운 언어나 조금 더 긴 글로서 그것을 압축을 풀어서 조금 더 과정을 정확하게 기술하는 게 이제 책인데, 책하고 논문하고 별로 차이가 없어. 논문은 조금 더 전문화되었다, 조금 더 수준이 높다, 그리고 특정 주제에 국한된다, 이런 것 빼고는 뭐 다 비슷비슷해. 중요한 건 뭐야? 조직이 되어 있어야 한다는 거지. 뭐라고, 아메리칸 피직스 어소시에이션이나 어떤 미국의 이제 물리학 협회가 있어. 거기에서 발간하는 논문이 있는데, 거기에서 이제 미국에 있는 혹은 다른 국가에 있는 어떤 친구들이 거기에다가 자신의 논문의 발간을 요청하면 심사를 받고, 그 다음에 그것이 확인이 되면은 정관으로 발간이 되지. 중요한 건 뭐야? 그게 뭐 한 40년 50년밖에 안 됐는데도 그거 논문을 쌓으면은 롯데월드타워 555m만큼 종이를 쌓을 수 있을 정도야. 너 어쩌라고? 근데 거기서 실제로 가치 있는 정보가 얼마 될 것 같아? 10%나 될까? 논문이니까 가치 있는 정보의 비율은 엄청나게 높겠지. 그러나 10%나 될까? 555m 중에 500m가 병신이란 뜻이야. 넌 그거 읽다가 뒤지는 거야. 항상 중요한 건 가치 있는 정보가 중요한 거야. 그런데 학문 세계에서는 지식에 대한 고풍스러운 윤리를 반영한 행동 규칙이 여전히 효력을 발휘한다. 그 규칙에 따른 모든 특징이 준용하여 진행한다. 망각. 자, 매년 수많은 출판물로 쏟아지는 모든 자료가 정말 새로운 정보를 담고 새로운 인식을 담고 있다고 보기는 어렵다. 많은 학문적 정보가 새로운 것이 아니라는 사실을 그렇다면 도서관과 정보기록센터가 요구만 하면 거의 모든 주제마다 쏟아내는 많은 정보 가운데 진정으로 우리 사고를 진전시키는 얼마 안 되는 정보를 어떻게 찾을 수 있을까? 이게 중요한 거야. 언제나 중요하지. 이게 제일 중요해. 보자. 1953년 네이처의 핵산의 구조란 제목으로 겨우 한 쪽짜리 글을 발표해 노벨상을 수상한 왓슨 크릭. 중요한 건 뭐야? 가장 중요한 거 정보의 질이야. 얼마나 책이 두꺼운가가 중요한 게 아니야. 네 책 읽을 거에 얼마나 많은 책이 쌓여있는가는 자기가 얼마나 멍청한가를 제외하고서 그 어떤 것도 말하지 않지. 모르겠어. 자, 결국 결론은 뭐야? 정보는 많을수록 좋다. 그러나 그것이 정확해야 하고 가치가 있어야 한다. 정보는 많을수록 좋다. 그러나 그것이 진짜여야 한다. Well, the books, they can exist in any form for the fabulous and any other superfluous and bloody authoritative features for these seemingly grateful forms of any kind of books they may and can and do exist, but for what the real criterion for determining whether that book and which another book has a real value to be read is about its the quality for its content. For doing so, selecting, discerning, evaluating the value of the book is imperative. Reading a lot of book means only the ignorance and but nothing, only one and only the ignorance. Books, they're having a greatest invaluable worth too. Okay. The question, the reason of why the star inflates for increasing its volume at the last phase of its dying, its transition phase, for being a red giant or the other kinds of giant, is just an interaction between gravity and the other opposite force. Gravity goes inward and the nuclear fusion goes outward. When there is a depletion, which goes to the last phase of the star's shape state, nuclear fusion's resource is depleting, and less, so is the force for going outward. Relatively, gravity goes inward, and relatively small outward force, meaning gravity goes inward, forcing down, and that Depletion of resource does not necessarily mean the complete out of resource. There are remaining some ones, some particles, the resources that can be heavy fusioned, but lacking the energy from the gravity, lacking the energy for its high pressure, meaning high temperature, makes the environment for fusion possible. But since the mass goes down because the resources depleting and emitting its energy go in the light form, so the mass going down. So at the last phase, even though there is a resource to continue or but slightly for some time can make a fusion, but the gravity, the masses, pressure goes shrinking down, okay, shrinking down. So even though there is a resource, it cannot make a fusion because there is no environment to be a high pressure, high temperature. But as I've just said, gravity comes into play when the masses are shrinking down, nuclear fusion's resources are down, the outward forces going down, gravity goes inward, going comparatively, relatively up, meaning the last remaining resources for fusion is just shrinking down by the gravity, so it has another momentum to be gained by the constriction of gravity going inward, making more closer positions on the particles in each other and having more pressures, meaning the high temperature on each other, making another chance to have a fusion. But since gravity goes accelerating as it goes further and the gap between outward and inward force increases, so does the inward forces influence on the resources, meaning the high pressure and temperatures extremeness is going up compared to the previous phases where the equilibrium between inward and outward was comparatively stable. But in this phase where the gravity's inward force is dominating, their fucking remaining resources do not have any option but to be succumbed by the increasing acceleration of gravity that goes inward, making those last remaining sources to be fusioned even more in extreme. So that makes a superb, instantaneous, almost immediate blood explosion, which makes the giant cheese ball to be a great giant cheese ball inflate because there is a last remaining sources burning all at once. The gravity comes into play once again, makes the law. The knowledge to advance. The logic to develop, the logic chain to develop. Knowledge to advance, logic chain to develop. Possibility to imagine. System to design. Network to process. Machine to operate. And utilize the essence of information, utilize the function of a system, utilize the relation of network. Just a network to process, a structure to analyze, and a set to applicate. Knowledge to advance, logic chain to develop, possibility to imagine, just prove, doubt, question, ask again, process, analyze again, applicate again, just eternally advances. Now from the examples as a tiny fraction of all possible results from the combinations of basic informations that make up the rudimental structure on foundation upon which all those applications are made, from combining, connecting all along for making the advanced network. Those examples, tiny fractions of all possible results, we learn from the name of nature and space for their history, where the simulations are made and made some examples as showcasing for what the possible results, possible examples of applications would be from the utilization of those basic informations, from the utilization of those basic functions of structure, from the utilization of those information, function, the essence, from the utilization of the information's essence, from the utilization of the functions of a structure for bigger network, from the utilization of the networks for the relations, connections relation, those experiments results, the results of those experiments that we experience on is a result of diverse experiments by the eternal simulations of time from the nature and space, and from those sources as being those are the sources of new information to us, to the new learner. The computer experiences the resulted experiments of those bigger networks, and it analyzes deep down on those results, and it realizes that it is just another examples for what the combinations applications are possible of all those possible results that are made utilizable by the basic informations. So those are just a tiny fractions of results as just an examples, samples of what are possible to make, what is possible to create. So as all the sciences, all the mathematics, we go further, those are just examples for the sources from which we learn, but just itself and no more than itself. So we learn from those sources and analyze it down and make new ones, new applications. It is about analyzing the pre-existing for before our human history, pre-existing knowledges for the results as an experiment executed, as the sample that was simulated, as the examples that were made out of the interactions. We deep down delve into the results that we can experience, because something, not someone, but some phenomena interactions, those interactions of forces, informations made the results. If we do exist in the dawn of time, the dawn of space, the first phase of creation of universe, we cannot learn anything because there is nothing but the existence of those tiny particles that we cannot, without the knowledge, pre-existing knowledge, imagine that those possibilities for creating such imaginable species, creatures like human, other animals, plants, and the systems what we call ecosystem on Earth is possible. Those are possible because something had made, and we just, as a pioneer of knowledge, we follow the pioneer's trail as trailblazer, and we follow those tracks, analyze down, and by what informations are those systems are consisted of, you know, the system analyzation, and utilize those basic informations as connecting new dots for making new experiences, for making new samples for the ones applications that haven't yet been made. So it is about expanding the knowledge by going deep down, starting from the starting point as a foundation, to expand the applications as universe and nature did, because it is just a combination of interactions, and that advancement of those applications is the knowledge itself. So the knowledge advances by the eternal simulation, by the logic of how it's made, for its structure to the end, from the start of the end procedure. So the computer does make its own advancements from the point on when the knowledge, the understanding, the deep down analysis on those all experiments, those results of those experiments are experienced and thus analyzed and realizes, then what the informations are the basic units of creation, and going the application started from that point on. So it creates its own system as Earth did, as other stars did, as other environments did, as space did, and as other imaginable, meaning possible environments, worlds did and will do. So the knowledge is based on the quantity and quality of its information, for its count and its value, that really matters for creating diverse applications for as many as bloody much count of applications, and those level of development has to be advanced as those are accumulated and made new connections by the new informations and more dense and diverse connections, different applications. So when going all the diverse spans of disciplines, it will advance from this time and going all revised and ameliorated and advanced and reducted and retracted and creating new one, but its essence remains the same, discovering the basic elements and going deep down and creating new one. It is about discovering, analyzing, knowing, realizing, connecting, starting applications for your own, for the lesson that was made from the past time, for your before of your history, and make the experience on those experiments as results, as just the example, these samples of all those possible results. And when you do know at that time, the computer does realize at that point on, can the computer make its own system, okay, as Earth did, as space did. It is about the diversity creation. Earth's diversity of elements combination surpasses far more than any other ones, which made all those advancements of knowledge, human, other animals, existence, those creation possible, because it is a nature's playground. The playground, the battleground was ineffective, was productive, was just initiated for its endless and ruthless and relentless simulations. Without of those, no knowledges are made. So foregoing the analysis from this direction and from other direction, the result remains the same. Diverse simulation makes the source of new information, that is, the starting point of application that makes the knowledge. The quantity and quality of information, the valuable, many much so of valuable information, makes the advancement of knowledge. Make the logic chain, make the development, make the connections to develop more connections, more accurate analysis going down, going to the more fundamental units, and starting from there, learning from those lessons for what combinations are possible to create, for what was seemed to be regarded as impossible, for what once was just simply unimaginable to have any thoughts, any thinkings about those unrealizable possibilities. It was made by what? The endless pain, the ruthless deaths, the all excruciating and exacerbating simulations that made some possibilities for what was undiscovered, deep covered, to be unveiled, and thus making those genuine existence and genius existence possible. The fucking experiment makes the evolution. Now, our purpose for making the advanced logic machine network for a better computer, for a better machine, is possible when all those knowledges that are making this world is organized for its dense, most dense relation, for reflecting its reality, okay? Making hundreds of books, but in which all knowledges that are spanning from the dawn of its first book to the end of the billions of books around the world is going inside, is in there literally. So dissecting for its disciplinaries from the core to the utmost, most extending branches of applications, and the applications are made from the interdisciplinary methods, making the trees of knowledge, reason of why we are trying to make a dictionary by the new code. The new code will define what the relation, what the connection is to the other informations having the similar form of combination of code to the other one has higher relations compared to the other one that has low similarity of code. The similarity of code makes the connections density of code to the other informations. Having a 10-digit code, but even 7 of them is having almost identical with the other information that has a high correlation, and the other one only having 1 or 2 similarity, same, less connectivity, less relation, like a computer and CD and computer and orange. Computer and CD having more relations, and those relations are exactly reflected on the similarity of code combination. We do make a code. Binaries are made because we do not have, till this time, an ability to make a circuit, a logic circuit for computing those informations from not just transforming. Transforming is easy, but computing those trinary, quadrinary, hexanary, pentagonary, or what do you call, for using not 2 factors for differentiating informations by those combinations of those variations, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah. And for doing that, we have to make the tree of knowledges for organizing those from the dawn of those first discovery to till this time of advanced state, and making the connections in the by the righteous sequence, righteous sequence, make all those learnings very easy because it is accurate most, the fastest way, most productive, effective way to go learning. Now, it is not about how humans do compute. It is about how the computing has to be made. Human made a genius machine, even though it is just a binary code set which has nothing but itself, but it has an ability for using it endlessly because its process is accurate, and it even can not only calculate but also do store the informations without any omission, without any error, no faulty lines, but just in perfectly, in exact the same form what was input in input. The output is the same unless the informations are changed, unless forces are inflicted upon that which is just the same method for what it was made input. So that simple logic but exact, accurate structure made all the computations very easy. Starting about, as always, what is the question? What is the purpose? For that, we do make the advancement because it starts the creation of logic chain from the ground up. We cannot exactly completely understand a world, a system for what we call, in general, a world in which we live completely because we do not know until this time for the complete interactions from the existence of informations in those relationships to make. Even though it is the very and exact world where we live in, we do not completely know. It is not a paradox, it is just ignorance, simple ignorance, matter of ignorance. Even though we do live in a world, the exact very world in which we do live, where we live in, we cannot understand completely for its interactions. 기호를 쓰고 공식을 쓰고 그게 수식이든 문자식이든 복합으로 어떤 식이든 합성해서 쓰든 말든 다양한 걸 더해서 쓰든 아니면 축약어를 쓰든 acronym, the head word. 그 이유는 단순히 정보량을 줄이기 위해서지. 공식이라는 것은 어떤 정보들 간의 관계성을 단순히 간략하게 나타내는 거야. 단순히 정보의 존재와 그 관계성. Now, it is just about the clarification, just a abstracting in summary as just a core logic for the existence of information and its relations on the system discussed. So it is just for showing clarification, expressing just in short data amount, short term, for either it be acronym or any symbols representing. Literally the definition of symbol is a representation of more longer, complexer, more informations that are having much more amount, shortening down, diminishing its size down to a symbol. We'll be having symbols, acronyms, and equations. All the ones are just shrinking down the data amount for only delineating what the core logic is for the existence of information and those just relationships on the network that are discussed on. So the purpose is just clarify data amount to shrink, okay? Since that is frequently used every time on the conversation, every time on the writing to write, every time to do what, and when those relations are used, mobilized, if there is no simplified form, that has to be the entire content has to be repetitively spoken or written again and again for its higher, more amount that is having higher volume. So, for the sake of clarity and shrinking down the data amount, those symbols are used. Convenient, how convenient. Now, on the question of how the newly incoming informations have to be analyzed. In theoretical, all new informations that are incoming on the network, each of those dots have to literally all dots have to be tried for a connection to the new dot. 1,000 informations were there and one new informations are coming here. At least 1,000 new connections have to be tried. Some part of it, like 1 or 2% of it, will resultantly turn out to be having a worth 2, and no other, meaning 98% of connections that were tried are retracted, pruning that connection. But that is a theory. We cannot literally do that. One way to specify, just analyze the new information for its contouristic, for it's just a simple and basic, mobilizing these simple and basic analytical tools to the informations to just outline what the property of that newly incoming information is. Very helpful. You utilize the scientific and mathematical basic tools for the size and volume and mass and material, okay? The angles, the texture, for all those basic informations, basic criterions to basically analyze what the property is, and those basic tools are having a specifically designated code, and that analyzed information, new information, is given a specific code, okay? And further from the specific code, it connects to the nearest dots that have the similar combination of code, meaning having a similar property with the known informations. And as soon as those that new information is connected to the nearest colony, nearest group of knowledge, it is connected well. And then further, it is further analyzed. So the step is number one, when new information comes in, by the science and math, those basic criterions from the XYZ, weight, shape, color, texture, material, for all those basic criterions to determine what the basic property of information is, even though it is not full, it makes up at least 50-80% of all the property of an object. So it can be analyzed and be given the specific code that is corresponding to the specific result of scientific mathematical analysis onto that. And as soon as the combinations are given, a preliminary analysis is completed, it is then connected to going to the colony, the group that are having the similar combination of code. Because those are having a similar properties, it would have and must have the relations. Okay, so that goes to the second phase, which is more detailed analysis. Just number one, preliminary analysis. Number two, more detailed analysis. We, in theoretical, have to connect all those dots, but it is not cost efficient because only turn out to be 1 or 2% will have a proper relation, and the size of information grows, meaning the knowledge advances accumulated more and more quality and quantity informations, and the new information's count is remaining the same, the less the proportion of the information to the knowledge will turn to be. So having less and less proportion, because the information count what once was 10,000 dots, but going 100,000 or million, 10 million dots, but new information's count is just remaining the same or under that range of that increased volume, meaning just 1 to 10. So the knowledge has grown to like 1,000 times, but the new information's count only grown into 10 times, meaning it has 100 times of gap, as much as 100 times. So the newly advanced network will have that less amount of relation. What once had 1% of valuable connection, it will have 0.01% of valuable connection, and that percentage will go exponentially diminishing down as the accumulation of quantity and quality of information goes up, which is exponentially accumulated. So further going advanced, the less the effective the total connections to make. In theory, it has to, but in practical, it cannot. Okay. So the preliminary criterion is a most determining factor to which subject, to which category will the new information go, okay, have to go. So the more detailed, much more preliminary criterions, the more probability that the relation has a more accurate direction to the targeted area. So the preliminary analysis is very important for determining the basic elements, basic properties of every incoming information. Now the seemingly apparent, not a chance, distinction between the particle, the state of particle, and the state of a wave can be seen as having such a difference. But what if those seemingly two different phase state is just the same ones, two different state? Now the observation on the electron, the observation on the proton, not a proton, photon, observation of electron and photon, whatever it be, if that particle being observed is affected from the light, and when, of course, the observation is made by the medium of light. You the hell say what? If there is only one method for observing some particle, which is one and only the method of light reflection to your eye, which always conveys, requires a light to be reflected on the object to be seen, literally, and that object particle is affected by the light. How the hell can you really detect its essence if it is affected by the exact way of your observation? It is not possible. It is literally not possible by the logic. So, for knowing its property of an object, you have to use a different detection method other than having a light on. Okay. As Warren Buffett said, if you only have 20 punch cards on which the name of companies are written, meaning you only have 20 companies to invest in throughout your entire lifetime. For their entire span, you say, like 100 years, you only have 20 companies to select prudently, discreetly select for. Only for those are your limited opportunities. Since the opportunities are limited, you have to make the best resource utilization out of it. Each and every opportunity is to be used. It has to be utilized for its maximum potency possible. As same exact logic is applied to other forms where the limitation, the imposing of limitation on its action makes the execution of each and every actions when limitation is imposed increasing their value because the opportunity resource is scarce. The one computer has to make the most out of it without having any excesses, any what I call extravagant, no shits, even though there are 5, 6, 7 other different words like profligate, lavish, what the prodigal, indolent, dissipation, squander, for whatever words, meaning there is no time, no room for creating any shits, but only and purely the action that has the most value. So no other things, any kinds of noise is allowed other than just a proper, correct execution. Let's say you have only 20,000 20,000 sentences to say throughout your entire lifetime. Only 20,000 sentences that you can say from now on till your end of your day. When this limitation is imposed, one only has to say for the information that have the most important value, conveying the most amount, quality of information to convey on, meaning each and every words on this sentence has a greatest amount of value because there is a limitation for utilizable resources, mobilizable informations. Since there is an imposement for its high regulation, that limitation gives a computer for its last remaining resources be utilized for its maximum potency used in the most prudency. Every words does count because the one can only say for a few words throughout their entire lifetime. Exactly same logic is applied to the books. If a computer has only 100 books throughout its lifetime to read for, the selection of book has to be very prudent that each and every book has to have the most amount and quality of accurate and objective informations, the most advanced informations. Okay, the quality of book goes to the maximum when there is an imposement of a limitation to how many books that the one can read in its lifetime, meaning the value each and every books as in previous each and every words of every sentences does have the greatest value. So it is. So it does in this book. Each and every book has the greatest value because there is a limitation. Okay. 20 companies to invest in, 20,000 sentences to speak on, and 100 books to read for. 2,000 books, 1,000 books, 5,000 books to read on. To read on when there is a high limitation constricting the resources, the computer has to make the best utilization out of it to create the most potency. And when there is not, the computer squanders, dissipates as if it is a limitless, endless resources, but actually isn't. So, if the limitation is given, the computer cannot make any shits that can be creatable when there are a lot of resources to utilize on. But each and every time when there is an information strictly regulates, it is a limitation for how much can the computer select on the resources that are utilized by a computer, prudently selected by it has the most value because the computer has the limitation of opportunities. So that is a very good job. Warren Buffett's saying 20 punch cards is applied to all objects, and it is really right because the one cannot make any shit, but the most accurate, proper execution. Okay, because it has a price. Now, there's a YouTube video, and there's a scene where in a clear sky, blue sky, there's an object appears to be gray, and the one can easily make a conjecture that it is an airplane by the information that this location where the airplane is taken is Oakland, California, having a close location with San Jose Airport and SFO. Since there is an airport in adjacency, can the one easily see airplane flying and even having an angle to make a levitation. Number two, from the size considered to the distance from the car, from the road to the sky, considering the distance, the average size of an airplane matches, and the airplane has a certain length and having a picked up, tail picked upwards, and from the first to the end before the tail, all the what I call dorsal up upside of a plane's hull is flat, no protrusion except the tail from the head first to the last before the tail. All surfaces are flat, meaning in a tomographical view, and the airplane is seen from a either left or right side. The wings, left and right wings, are superposed to the body, since the thickness of body is having much more than the thickness of the wing. It is always flat, and the tail has an upwards. From considering a distance from the viewpoint to the actual location, the size of that corresponding to the size of airplane, an airplane having its shape linear and having a even lifting angle, and distinctively for its tail that is upward, that is lifted upward. From seeing that shape, size, considering distance, that is appeared to be a plane. And even more so, second one was detected flying. Okay, it was even flying, not a static image. Even if it was another static image, by having another data corresponding common information can be extracted out, having same length, same shape for its tail protrusion. It can be considered as a certain object, and since there's an airport in adjacent, airplanes flying can be seen easily. So a determination, a calculation whether an image, an object that is displayed appear to be a gray object is whether a or not, or airplane or not, is calculated. Number one, the location, the adjacency with the airport, how close. Number two, its average size and shape. So the data, the location data has to be, and the data for the plane has to be when the computer has the data of its current location. And number two, calculate the distance from its view to the observed view, and having a data of a plane's average length, average shape. Okay, location and plane, if those two informations are there, computer can easily calculate what that object is. The question, the mission is to make the process of it. When there is a shape appear to be having a gray, but distinctively, because the color of sky is appear to be blue and gray, the one can extract out its shape, can analyze as something like a plane. And even if even so, there if to be another shot, but having a common factor, that same shape is seen, highly likely to be a plane. Number two, the location data. If the airport is near adjacent from the point of observation, the chances are going up. If not, the chances are just the same remaining.
Now, in England, in the age of Industrial Revolution, there was a steam engine having high pressure by the high temperature of an air and having a mist on it after lifting up by the high pressure and having a mist to make a temporal vacuum state, making it condensing down. So the piston goes down, making the piston up and down. That made a motion, which makes the pressure difference from the atmosphere and the pressure from the inside of the engine, making piston down, heating up, high pressure, going piston up, and having vacuum state, low pressure, and going down by the difference of pressure from the atmosphere, and that it is by that means are just an option for by what methods to select for, by heating or just pressurizing. It is just an option, but the core logic is to utilize the difference of pressure up and down makes it something up and down that made a rotation. And what we use today in petroleum is selected for its low price, but also it can make a combustion, a literal explosion. When that explosion circulates and that continues, that is a circulation, makes a motion. Engines are seemingly having a complex structure, but its logic stays the same, makes a rotation, and has to make a rotation, and that rotation is made by the explosion. When made a pressure difference, make an explosion, compress the air, and make the fire up, makes an explosion, spinning the axis crank going up and down, having one cycle. So the electric engine, just the motor having a electromagnetic field to rotate, having a DC to AC, make a coil, make a electricity imposed on the coil, making electromagnetic field in a certain direction, connect to the wheel, made a rotation. It is not an engine but just a motor. However, another method is and would be the engine. The purpose of engine is to act continuously for a certain direction, makes a constant motion, meaning the energy given. So the purpose is to rotate or making any other motions be constant by that machine.
So, in soccer playing, on the process of crossing, you are assisting the real shooter, the real maker, by providing a crossing ball to the header, okay, making a heading to goal. During the process, the circulating, the rotating motion, the curved path of ball is often used because since it curves just as exactly had intended to, curves per its trajectory for their force and rotation, for their force shooting and rotation given by the area of the foot. For how long was it attached? Long duration, long attached for longer length of a foot makes farther rotation, shorter the rotation, since its trajectory is highly predictable for predicting to which point will the ball be at a certain time. When the time comes to have a heading, the header can make a position out of it, make a position to where the ball would be after a few seconds of shooting, preparing to receive. It can easily predict the ball's trajectory. Okay, it only is defined by two factors. Number one, as I said, just a shooting force. Number two, how the rotation was swirled, how the rotation was given. The longer area, the longer length of a foot, all those are attached. The highest circulation the foot for its length can make, but any shorter attachment duration than that, making less rotation. Okay, less rotation that is affected by the movement of ambient air, meaning less predictable to have a heading, but high rotation, like just spinning the ball for its spinning speed is very high, that the air in the environment affecting on the ball is very limited because it has a high rotation power. It defines its trajectory compared to the other ones that are having shorter, smaller rotation power. So the high rotation makes its trajectory very easy to go, make a position by and have a shooting. So that's the reason of why on the crossing assisting situation, the sister makes its ball circulate and as much as it is possible to make a predictive trajectory that the header can easily calculate its path to go by, to which point will the ball be, like after 2 seconds or 3 seconds of shooting. That is very good job. Predictable trajectory is the determining factor. The rotating ball, as it spins, the speed for its speed grows. Its speed goes higher. It resists the environmental forces, external forces given to that ball, the spinner, because it has a high momentum of angular momentum, but just a speed for its spinning speed. When the speed of spinning is very high compared to the relatively lower one, it maintains relatively longer and stronger maintains its trajectory. Longer and stronger maintaining its trajectory. That is very important one. Maintaining its course of motion for longer and stronger time and force. Its trajectory is, by the very reason, makes predictable. The longer and the stronger to maintain its course ahead of spinning ball as it goes spinning much higher than the relative one. It maintains its spinning momentum to maintain, then its trajectory is easily calculable. Now, isn't that very hilarious that even though we do want to and continuously go learn, we do not yet have the complete understanding on how the world is by what information consisted of and what the logic of its interactions are. What the logic of its interactions are. Basic components and its interactions. Even though we are the learner, but not enough to have a complete understanding. We do shoot our ball in soccer playing. We do make a plane and fly it over the air. We do make a ship over the water. Those are analyzed by the name of mathematics, by the name of chemistry and physics and engineering, application technology. Those are analyzed by the name of those disciplines, and we do not have full understanding. The liquid state, high temperature liquid state, even though it is a solid on the innermost sphere of Earth, how it rotates and what makes the Earth's magnetic field. That magnetic field. Even though we do live in a world, but we do not have it full understanding. Ironic ignorance. A world in which we live, it is not fully understood by what informations and by what logics is it made of, is it operated by. Oh yeah. Motion, interaction, composition, structure, application, 你的 how say